Okay, I want to finish up one point here in Beshalach, and then we're going to go on to Yisro. Take a look at page 390. Maybe Lenny, turn it off completely, the heat. I just pushed about, thanks. Okay, now, we have here, enter Amalek. This is the first time we meet Amalek. Amalek, if you notice at the bottom of 390, Vayavo Amalek. And everybody knows that there is Amalek figures prominently in all of our literature, and Amalek comes up on Purim in the form of Haman, and there's actually a mitzvah in the Torah that eventually we have to obliterate Amalek, men, women, and children, and kill there should be no memory of Amalek that's left. What is Amalek about, and why does Amalek enter the fray over here? If you look at page 390, so the background to Amalek is that the Jewish people are traveling. They get to a place called Rephidim, and there's no water to drink. So, they instead of coming to Moshe Rabbeinu and saying, Moshe, really, we're kind of thirsty. Is there something we could do about this? They do it with contention. It's Vayorev They come over with, come on, Moshe, we're starving, we're dying of thirst over here. What's going on? Why'd you take us out to the desert? They did it in a very, very inappropriate manner. And the last thing that says that the Jewish people, that Moshe Rabbeinu says, take your staff and hit the stone and water's going to come out. And this is the first time he hits the rock. And then he's meant to be hitting the rock. Page 390, by the way, page 390. He's meant to be hitting the rock. The second time he hits the rock, he was supposed to be speaking to the rock. This time he's supposed to hit it. Okay. So the water comes out, and then pick it up 4 lines from the bottom. Now look at, there are no accidents in Torah. It's not a coincidence that one section follows the next. Vayikra Shem Hamako Masa Umariva. He names the place quarrel and contention. Al Riv B'nai Israel, because of the fight of the Jewish people, Val Nasosam as Hashem, testing God. Pay attention very carefully now to the wording. Lamor, the Jewish people were saying, Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu imay, is God in our midst or not? Now, Andrew, your question is a good question. Now, the other one was a good question too, but now, is God in our midst? He just split the sea for you, took you out of Egypt and split the sea. Is God in our midst? Chutzpah. Well, to answer your question. So, the proverbial kid who's walking around the house, you ever happened when you were little? I have nothing to do. And your father says, you want me to give you something to do? Did you ever hear that? I have nothing. You want to go, or, you ever hear that one? Oh, yeah. And it was always like, oh, yeah, no, you want me to give you something? No, I'll find something to do. And you go beat up your brother or something. I mean, that's something. And, or you're kvetching. You're whining. You want to whine? You want me to give you something to whine about? You're crying? You want me to give you something to cry about? This is all in daddy's school. They teach you this in daddy's school. This is the same script for all day. You want to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. So here you have the proverbial, Hashem says, look at there where the Jewish, is Hashem in our midst or not? Oh, you have a doubt? You want some doubt? I'll give you some doubt. Very next word, Vayova Amalek. Amalek shows up. You got a doubt? I'll give you some. Here's some doubt. Have some doubt. Why is Amalek doubt? Look at the numerical value of Amalek, first of all. Ayin is 70. Mem is 40. It's 110. Lamed is 30. Is 140. Kuf is 100. Equals 240. 240 is the numerical value of the Hebrew word safek, which is doubt. Samech, pei, kuf. Samech is 60, pei is 80, kuf is 100, safek, 240. Exact amount. Oh, you got a doubt? Is Hashem in our midst or not? Here, have some safek. I'll give you some doubt. You want a doubt? I'll give you some doubt. No coincidence. What does that mean? What does that really mean? What it means is the Jewish people had just come out of Egypt. 10 plagues, Kriyas Yamsuf. They're on 11 game winning streak. There's no one in the world who doesn't know that God is intervened in the affairs of man and is guiding the Jewish people with what we call hashgacha pratis, direct divine intervention. Everybody's convinced of it. Remember last week we said when the water split, all the waters of the world split. Everybody knows there's a Kriyas Yamsuf. Everybody in Egypt knows there were 10 plagues. The Jewish people are hot. They're on an 11-game winning streak. Comes along Amalek, and what the Medrash compares it to is a bunch of people standing around a boiling hot mikveh. You ever been to the hot mikvehs here in Yerushalayim? They got some of these really hot mikvehs. You can actually go in there and come out half baked. Some of these mikvehs, you go into them and it just you sizzle. So the Jewish people, a bunch of people are standing around a boiling hot mikveh, scalding hot water. Everybody's afraid to jump in. That means the nations are afraid to start up with the Jewish people. They're invincible. They're untouchable. They're in awe of them. One guy comes along and says, I'm not scared, and he jumps into the water. He gets burnt. But what it does is it reduces the aura around the water. It cools off the water. That means, I remember when Mike Tyson's the best example. When Mike Tyson was at his prime, you guys went into the ring with Mike Tyson, they took you out in an iron lung. It was not even, the fights lasted. If they went 2 rounds, they were doing well, and they just carried them out in pieces. And it gets to a point where nobody wants to go in. Then one guy goes in there and manages to get in a couple of punches. Oh, he's human. He could be hit. He could bleed just like the other. The guy's also carried out on a stretcher. But at least you've broken, you've chipped away, you've broken the aura. The Jewish people, at this point, the world is convinced they're untouchable. One nation who's got a axe to grind. What do you mean there's a God? Don't start up. Don't tell me there's a God and there's divine providence nonsense like that. What's their agenda? Why not? Why not? Why would they rather deny it than why not? Well, it's the same reason everybody tries to deny it. Because if there's a creator, I've got responsibilities that's going to seriously impede on all of my behavior if there is really a creator and I'm accountable to him. So Amalek has an agenda. Stop the nonsense. Yeah, they're on an 11-game streak. Yeah, they had 10 plagues. All right, there's this reason and that reason, and they're splitting in a sea of magnetic force. It's all a coincidence. It happens. Sometimes it happens that people go on a winning streak. And they just got lucky. Well, depends how long the winning streak is. Does anybody know the longest winning streak in sports history? Nobody knows that. Oh, please! They were undefeated. They were the only undefeated Super Bowl team. What? Nobody knows the longest win. Any major American sport, longest win. Come on, Jeremy, it's you. L.A. Lakers, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, 33 straight games. Before your time, it's also so. The Revolutionary was before your time also. You know all about that. Listen, there are things in life that are important. You're supposed to know them. So if it's important enough, you'll know it. If not, you don't know it, it means it wasn't important enough. Got to get your priorities straight, Jeremy. So Amalek it's all coincidence. Will attack the Jewish people. Now, what they did was the reason that they're taken to task because it wasn't a defensive war. They came across, they were living in a completely different region. They weren't threatened by the Jewish people. The Jewish people heading to the land of Israel. And Amalek takes the trouble to ride all the way across the desert and attack them on principle. Not because that's the claim against Amalek. What is the doubt? Why is the numerical value of Amalek doubt? They're throwing doubt into the minds of us and the entire world about the concept of Hashgacha Pratis, that there is a God who's involved in the day-to-day running of the Jewish people, of the world. That's the doubt. That's why the nature of Amalek is doubt. That means we all have a little Amalek in us. That's why we have to destroy them. Because physical Amalek simply corresponds to spiritual Amalek. We all have that element of a little bit of Amalek in us. We're convinced, but a little bit, maybe. That's what we're trying to destroy. That the idea of destroying physical Amalek corresponds to spiritual Amalek. So in this first battle, watch this. This is remarkable. What happens in this first battle? Vayovo Amalek v'ilachem Yisrael b'refidim. Bottom of 390. Vayomer Moshe el Yoshua b'char lanu anashim. Moshe says to Yoshua, take men v'yitzei hilachem ba'amalek machar. I would say Amalek ba Amalek, go battle Amalek. Mochar anochi nitzav harosh hagiva. Tomorrow I'll be on the top of the mountain. Umate Elokim biyodi. I'll have the staff of God. Vayas Yoshua kasher amar lo Moshe li'lochem Amalek. Yoshua does what Moshe says to go battle Amalek. Moshe, Aharon, v'Chur olu rosh hagiva. Moshe, Aharon, and Chur go up to the top of the mountain. And then the Torah is going to describe how Moshe stood with his hands upright while the Jewish people are fighting Amalek. And he's davening to Hashem. So Moshe, Aharon, and Chur go up to the mountain. So everybody, Moshe you've heard of? Yeah. Aharon you've heard of? So, when you read this pasuk, it's like, Moshe, Aharon, and Chur? Who's he? Who's Chur? How did he get into the picture? Moshe, I understand. Aharon, where's Chur come from? Says Rashi, who is Chur? Rashi says it's on which pasuk, which line over here? Where is it? Right, it's the middle of right column, little past the halfway point, about the 45-yard line. Chur, Binash shel Miriam haya. He was the son of Miriam. V'Kalev Baila. Kalev was her husband. Chur. So Moshe, Aharon, and Chur go up to the top of the mountain. Okay. And Moshe's got his hands up, and his hands get heavy, and then Aharon and Chur on each side. When Moshe sits, they put a rock under him, and Moshe sits down, and they hold up his hands. And Moshe sits on a rock. The Gemara says, why didn't he sit on a pillow? A cushion. Why did he sit on a rock on the mountain? So the Gemara answers, because when the Jewish people are in a state of distress, you should share with their distress. So somebody was asking me recently about that he wanted to fast and the merit of the hostages, which is a beautiful thing. There are people, I know people who I have a friend who has not slept on a pillow since the hostages were taken. And Reb Chaim Kanievsky's son-in-law, Rav Yitzchak Kolodetsky, in the beginning he was sleeping on the floor, on a blanket on the floor. He wouldn't sleep in a bed once the hostages were taken in order to empathize, but it also kind of reduces some of their own suffering. But that a person should feel, there's a connection to them. Eventually he had to stop sleeping on the floor because he got sick, but he sleeps on a bed now without a mattress. Rav Yitzchak Kolodetsky, Reb Chaim Kanievsky's son-in-law. Since the hostage had been taken. So Moshe Rabbeinu, because the Jewish people are now in a state of peril, Moshe Rabbeinu sits on a rock instead of on a cushion. It's a lesson to all of us. That's one of the ideas when we fast on Tisha B'Av. The community's fasting right now. This is not the time for a person to say, well, listen, you guys fast for me, I'll do Purim for you. It doesn't work that way. You're in it for the good, and you have to fast on Tisha B'Av when everybody else fasts. And a person who says, well, you guys fast, I'm not in on this, so then the Gemara says he will also, if you're not with the Jewish people when it's difficult, so you're not going to see the ultimate redemption either. So there is that idea of it. That's why he sits on the rock. But let's go back. This is the part that's hard. Moshe, Aharon, and Chur go up on a mountain. Why? Okay, get ready for this. In Pirkei Avos it says that the world stands on three things: Torah, Avoda, and Gevilus Chasadim. Torah study, the divine service, which is sacrifices and mitzvah, doing any mitzvah, and Gemilus Chasadim, which is acts of kindness. There's also a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, Hakina ve'ataiva ve'hakavod motziin es ha'adam min ha'olam, which means jealousy, the pursuit of honor, and the pursuit of pleasures remove a person from the world. That's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Hakina ve'ataiva ve'hakavod motziin es ha'adam min ha'olam. Now, it's got double layer of meaning. Number one, jealousy, honor, the pursuit of honor, the pursuit of pleasure, take a person out of this world. Just very, very practically. A person who's jealous, he could get ulcers from jealousy. Jealousy, a person you feel when you're jealous, you can actually feel a physical sensation inside. It's your kishkes are being eaten. The pursuit of honor, a person pursues honor, so he may overwork himself, or he may steal money in order to keep up his prestige and his image, and eventually may get shot breaking into somebody's house trying to steal money so he could buy a Lamborghini to keep up with the neighbors. Or he may just die of a heart attack because he took on so much pressure because he wanted to be the CEO because of the honor that goes with being the CEO, and the pressure killed him. Anything. It could literally terminate a person's life. And certainly the pursuit of physical pleasures, whether it has to do with eating the wrong things or drinking the wrong things or snorting the wrong things or whatever it is that he does as physical pleasure, that can actually terminate his life. But it also means that the kina, taiva, and kavod takes a person out of the world to come. Because every misdeed that we do is going to have one or more of these factors in it. Every single avera, the catalyst for the avera is either going to be jealousy, the pursuit of honor, or the pursuit of pleasure, and sometimes more than one. Okay. So far, so good? So far, so good. Okay. In a godless world, what factors are going to dominate? Kina, taiva, and kavod. If there's no God in the world, that means I'm only thinking about myself. If I'm jealous, jealousy reigns supreme. If you got it, and not only if you got it, I want something like that, I might want the thing that you have. If it means killing a man because you want to take his wife, so you'll do that too. Because you're jealous of his wife, or his girlfriend, or his car, or his house, or whatever he's got. Taiva, kavod, the pursuit of honor. We'll do whatever we have to do to get honor, even if it means like Kennedy and Nixon in the famous debate. When Kennedy beat Nixon, do you know that Kennedy had them arrange that Kennedy knew that Nixon had a propensity to sweat. So he made sure that the temperature in the room was high so that Nixon would come across, Kennedy looked suave and debonair, and Nixon kind of looked kind of like Sam will look tonight watching the Super Bowl, just sweating, sweating and suffering. And that's what Nixon looked like on the he cheated. He basically stole the election. Kennedy stole the election. Okay, for the pursuit of honor. And what is it called? Passion, pleasures, physical pleasures. Obviously, if a person goes and eats pork, so he's doing an avera because of his. So he's going to cost him the world to come, or adultery, or any other avera that a person will do. Now, in an Amalek-dominated world, so you're going to have these three factors. What's the counterforce to each one of them? Well, how do we overcome kina? How do you overcome jealousy? The counterforce to jealousy is gemilus chasadim. Why?
What does that mean?
Acts of kindness to your fellow man. That's the opposite. Diametrically opposed. Kina means I resent you. I'm jealous of you. I resent what you've got. Call it envy, call it jealousy. The opposite, the counterforce to jealousy is obviously that I'm concerned for you. I'm willing to do kindness with you. I'm willing to do chesed with you. That's the opposite of kina. Kina means I'm jealous of you. The opposite is I'm concerned for you. That's the counterforce. And if you're ever jealous of somebody, by the way, do something for him. If you're ever jealous of somebody, do something for him. Or tell him you're jealous of him. It's interesting. You know what the underlying fact why jealousy really, there's a pasuk that says, "Rikav atzmos kina." Jealousy causes the bones to rot. The pasuk in Mishlei. Rikav atzmos, it causes the bones to rot. You can literally feel when you're jealous, it's eating away at you, the rankles. So one of the reasons is because I think what he's thinking, we project on other people. This guy's got a beautiful car. And I think that he's looking at me thinking, I got the car and you don't. And that's what causes some of the jealousy. It's not only I'm jealous of the car, it's just because I think that the guy's gloating. I may read him, maybe I'm reading him right, maybe I'm reading him wrong, but I certainly think that's what he's thinking. You know how you get over that? You walk over to the guy and say, wow, that's a really beautiful car. I'm jealous of you. I'm telling you, it's like letting out the steam. It works. I had a guy in my neighborhood who's a chazan. Beautiful guy, David Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I'm jealous of the guy. I'd like to be the chazan. You're chazan and you get some compliments afterwards and you lead the congregation. I like to be the chazan. I don't know that there's much salary, but I like to be the chazan. A good friend of mine. So I said to him one day after one, I walked up to him once. I said, by the way, I want to tell you something. I'm jealous of you. I wish I was a chazan. He looked at me and goes, no, you're not. He thought I was kidding. He thought I was joking. I wasn't joking. Listen, it didn't keep me up at night. It wasn't that kind of jealousy. But I would like to, I'm a little envious of the guy. So I said to the guy, I'm envious of you. It just kind of clears the air type of thing. Because it's almost like you feel like it's hanging there. So the counterforce to envy is Gemilus Chasadim. So far, so good. Kina, Taiva. What's the counterforce to physical pleasure, the pursuit of pleasure? What's the counterforce? There's only one counterforce, gentlemen.
Pursuit of spirituality.
Torah. Specifically, Torah. The Gemara says, Barasi Yetzer Hara, I created the evil inclination. Barasi lo Torah Tavlin. The Torah is the antidote. There is no other antidote that helps us neutralize that drive, the passion drive, especially in the area of immorality. There's nothing that neutralizes the drive as much as studying Torah. It's the only thing that neutralizes. You can do a lot of mitzvahs, by the way. You can do a lot of mitzvahs. None of the mitzvahs neutralize that drive. Torah takes the energy out of that drive. And that's what the Gemara says. I created the evil inclination. The antidote is Torah study. So you ever see they used to have in the movies, the bad guy captures the good guy and he injects him with the secret formula, some secret disease that only the bad guy has the antidote for. Then the whole rest of the movie or the show is about how they got to find this bad guy, otherwise the good guy's he's got this incredible disease that's going to kill him. And then of course they always find him, at the last minute they find him. But at the end of the day, no other antidote works. No matter what you try, or antibiotic, nothing works. Because there's only the one who created the disease, only he knows. That mad scientist is the only one who knows what the antidote is. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the disease, it's called the Yetzer Hara. Only God knows what the antidote is, which is Torah. That's the second. And what's the cure for honor? The pursuit of honor is avoda, is the divine service. Because honor says it's all about me. And the divine service says I submit to God. As opposed to worshiping myself, I worship God. So you need, in order to counter an Amalek world, because that's what would happen. In an Amalek world, these three passions would run rampant. How do you counter them? With Torah, Avodah, and Gemilus Chasad. Oh. So why did these three men go up on a mountain? Well, what does Moshe Rabbeinu represent?
Countering honor.
Moshe Rabbeinu, which one of Torah, Avodah, or Gemilus Chasadim is Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is Torah. He brought down the Torah. We even call it Torah. Zichru Torahs Moshe. The whole Torah is called Moshe. So Moshe goes up on the mountain in full view. He's Torah. Aharon is in full view. What is he? Aharon is, you're right, each one has other factors, but what's the first, but what do we know about Aharon? Before, you're right, because he's a Kohen. What's the Kohen? He's a Kohen Gadol. What's the Kohen Gadol? Avodah, the divine service. And what's Hur? Hur is the son of Miriam. What did Miriam do? Oh, for one thing, she helped keep babies alive. That's called chesed, gentlemen. When you keep babies alive instead of killing them, that's a very big chesed. So Miriam represents chesed, but you're not going to have a woman go up on the mountain in full view of everybody, so who's the next best thing? Her son. So Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam, and Hur, in place of his mother Miriam, they go up on the mountain in full view of the Jewish people fighting this war. Realize what you're fighting for. You're fighting for the spiritual survival of the Jewish people. Because if Amalek wins, then you're going to have Kina, Taiva, and Kavod running rampant in the world. And if these three factors are there, then Klal Yisrael survives. And that's the idea of going up and fighting Amalek, because we're fighting Amalek in every generation. That's the fight. It's an ideological fight against what we really stand for. Okay, that's the story. Now let's go on to Parshat Yitro. And we start off with trouble right off the bat. It says, Vayishma Yitro, page 394. Vayishma Yisro Kohen Midyan Chosein Moshe Es Kol Asher Asa Lokim LeMoshe L'Yisrael Amo. Yisro, the high priest of Midyan, is the father-in-law of Moshe, and he heard everything that God did to Moshe and the Jewish people. Ki Hotzi Hashem Es Yisrael MiMitzrayim, that God has taken the Jewish people out of Egypt. Now take a look at the very first Rashi. Vayishma Yisro. First Rashi, right column. Mashmua Shama. What did Yisro hear that caused him to join up with the Jewish people? It says Rashi, Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, Mechemes Amalek. In this battle of Amalek, Yeshua goes down, and Yeshua defeats Amalek, does not annihilate them. God did not want them annihilated yet. Later on, they're going to be meant to be annihilated. And who messes up by not annihilating them? Anybody know? Who does not annihilate on King Saul? King Shaul Amalek was supposed to annihilate them, and he didn't. So Yisro hears about the splitting of the sea, and he hears about the first defeat of Amalek, and he joins up with the Jewish people. Anybody have a problem with that? Anybody have a question on that, Rashi? He's a Gemara question. He's going to become.
On the splitting of the sea, get him to come down and join.
What's that?
The splitting of the sea. Surely that was enough to get him.
Excellent. Whoa, that's good. That's good. See? That's a Gemara question. You know, it's like telling you, I'm just using an example. Imagine it's tomorrow. And I tell you that Mahomes was voted the MVP of the Super Bowl because he threw for over 400 yards and 9 touchdown passes, no interceptions, and he also scrambled for 15 yards. What would you wonder about?
How much help did he get from the refs?
Oh, you're going to be sorry you asked that question. Oh, you're going to be sorry. What the obvious question is, listen, why did I include it's enough that he threw over 400 yards and threw 9 touchdown passes. And he ran 15, and he scrambled 50 yards. Ooh. I mean, okay, that's 50 yards is good for a quarterback, but who cares? Just throwing 9 touchdown passes is enough. Why are you even throwing that? Why are you even putting that in? I don't care if he scrambled. The only thing he scrambled was eggs that morning. If he went through 400 yards, 9 touchdowns, that's quite sufficient. Why do you throw wow, the splitting of the sea? That's enough for most people. Exactly what it is asking. That's enough for most people. And the Muhammad. Okay, so they want a battle. I mean, it happens all the time. Why is that a factor? Good. Now you have to answer your own question. What's the answer? Okay. So the answer is like this. Anybody got an answer? Why does Rashi throw that in? Again, Rashi's quoting the Medrash. Right? Okay, the plain answer is he's just telling you the chronological order of events. Don't need chronological. Okay. What else?
Once is a coincidence, twice is not.
Well, I mean, the splitting of the sea was no coincidence, especially 12. Especially if there were 12 paths through the sea. What a coincidence. It's pretty impressive. You don't need anything more. Why are you telling me that? Why are you telling me that about the Battle of Amalek?
Yisro seems to have some greater tie to the physical battle of Amalek than the.
What is it about the battle? What is it about that Battle of Amalek that is a factor? So Moshe Feinstein says, if Yisro sees there's a splitting of the sea, and remember we mentioned the Medrash that all the water in the world split, so everybody knew about it. Yisro is living off in Midyan, and Yisro hears about this, and he hears about a battle with Amalek, and he's thinking to himself, you know what? A nation is capable of hearing about the splitting of the sea and they're still obstinate enough to try to deny God? I can't trust myself alone over here. I better join up with the Jewish people, because it doesn't mean maybe I'm vulnerable too. That means that if somebody in the world could see what's happening and still be a denier, so I can't trust myself alone over here. I better join up with the Jewish people. I need a support group over here. I can't trust myself on my own. That means he heard about the battle of the splitting of the sea, but he also hears that there's Amalek is willing to go to war. There's not the victory over Amalek. Then Amalek is even willing to go to war. So how can I trust myself over here? That means the person has to identify. We understand in Judaism we're vulnerable. This is our argument. This is why we always have an argument. People say, how come you have to have a mechitza in the shul? Why do you need a mechitza when you daven? A separation between the men and women. The answer is because we're not on the same spiritual level. We're not as spiritually on the same spiritual level as the Reform and Conservative, where they don't know the mechitza. We have weaknesses. We have a weakness over here, and the answer is we recognize our weakness. We recognize the weakness. We're not in denial. We understand God created us a certain way. If you don't have a mechitza, so then there's going to be mingling. That's the fact. In the Beis Hamikdash, do you know that they had to put the women in a different area in the Beis Hamikdash? In the Beis Hamikdash, there was problematic mingling. So they had to make an adjustment to put the women on. Okay, we're not in denial. We understand where our vulnerabilities are. If a guy says, I know that if I'm alone on a college campus, for example, what's going to happen? I better find myself a better college campus situation where maybe I can go to a yeshiva college program and I'm not going to be facing these temptations constantly. If a guy says, listen, I could go to a bar and I'll be okay. No, you won't. Go to a kosher bar. That may be an oxymoron. But find yourself, identify your vulnerability. That's the first thing Yisro does. He understands I'm vulnerable. How do I know I'm vulnerable? If Amalek is vulnerable, that means I'm vulnerable too. If Amalek could behave like that, there's a vulnerability. Therefore, I can't do that. Therefore, he's got to join the Jewish people. Okay, so he brings Tzipporah and Moshe's children, and then he comes to join Moshe Rabbeinu. Then skip down to, wrong page here. It's a rule in life, by the way. Avoid those areas. Listen, on Shabbos, I go shopping on Erev Shabbos. And there are certain foods that I know that if I eat them, I'm going to pay a price later. So, I'll bring them into the house but won't eat them. No, it doesn't work. That doesn't work. You have to just stay away from it. Don't bring it in. I know I'm not going to feel well from it, so don't allow yourself, don't put yourself in a situation of vulnerability. It could be with alcohol also. It could be with anything that a person has a weakness for. I know that I'm not strong enough, so we avoid it. We don't take it on, just try to avoid the situation altogether. Okay. So Yisro comes up to join the Jewish people. Now, right off the bat, and take a look at Pasuk, Pasuk with the two sons. Okay. He joins the two sons and he comes to Moshe Rabbeinu. And then take a look at Pasuk Zayin. He sends a message to Moshe Rabbeinu that I'm coming to meet you. I'm coming to join the Jewish people. Please come out and greet me. Yisro wants Moshe to greet him so that the Jewish people are more accepting of him, because he's obviously not a naturally born Jew. And then look what it says: Vayetze Moshe likras chosno. Moshe goes out to greet his father-in-law. Vayishtachu vayishaklo. He bows down and he kisses him. Vayishalu ishadar eu l'shalom vayavo ohela. They greet each other and they come into the tent. Take a look at Rashi on Pasuk Zayin. It's the left column, 2 lines from the bottom. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Take a look at Rashi. Vayetze Moshe. Kavod gadol niskabed Yisro b'osasha. Yisro got tremendous honor. Kevan sheyotza Moshe yotza Aharon nodav avihu. Now Moshe went out, and imagine you see Moshe Rabbeinu is walking. So Aharon sees him and he says, Moshe, I don't know where he's going, but I'm going to go with him. Imagine Reb Chaim Kanievsky leaves his house and would have started walking. So what happened if anybody saw Reb Chaim Kanievsky? Moshe Feinstein left his house and said, anybody who saw Moshe Feinstein joined him. These people, when they came out of shul on Shabbos, there was a whole entourage that followed them home. Wherever he went, people who saw joined him. So Moshe Rabbeinu starts walking out to greet his father-in-law. Well, Aharon sees him. But if somebody sees Moshe and Aharon, they're going to follow him. And anybody, so Nodav and Avihu eventually had the entire Jewish people come out. So where Yisro is greeted by basically the entire Jewish people. That's a big honor. So we learn from here, from if Moshe Rabbeinu could greet, we learn from here how important it is to greet people. Learn about how important it is to greet people first. That's a very important thing. And the Gemara says that if somebody you know greets you first, somebody you know always greets you, and you don't greet him and make the attempt to go, you're stealing from him. You're taking from him that which includes your wife, by the way. That is something he's entitled to. A guy told me that a rabbi, today's a rabbi, he's a Baal Tshuva, and he was moving to a certain community in America, and they were living in Israel. He and his wife were living in Israel. They became Baalei Tshuvas over here. And they're moving to an established community somewhere in America. They were nervous because they're going to move into this community and nobody knows them, and it's an established community. Nobody knows they exist. So they're very nervous about it. And so he goes to the first shul. He goes to this shul. And he goes there Friday night, okay. Then he comes on Shabbos day. And Shabbos day, he davens at the shul. And they have a kiddush after the davening. So he goes over to the kiddush, and a guy walks over and says, Shalom Aleichem, what's your name? You're new in town. So he's like, wow, somebody noticed me. People need to be noticed. People need a basic, I exist. And so he tells the guy his name, and I said, wow, okay. 2 minutes later, another guy says, wow, you're new around here, Shalom Aleichem. He says, okay. And then he's told me no less than 15 people came up to him to say Shalom Aleichem, which is rare. 15 people came up to him. And what he didn't know was that the week before, the rabbi in the sermon, he said, hey, people, if you see a new face in shul, go up to him and say Shalom Aleichem. Don't just ignore, go up and say Shalom Aleichem. So he was the happy recipient of being the first guy in the shul after the rabbi gave this drasha the week before, and that's why he had 50. He said it made a soft landing for him. He says that made all the difference. How did he find out about it? Because Herschel, the shul grouch, was the 16th guy, and he came over and gave him a wet fish of a handshake. The rabbi said, we got to greet new people. And he said it didn't even bother him. He was so happy. He was so happy to hear that. By the way, this happened to me once. I had a guy in my shul, an older man in the shul, who was always, this man, no matter who came into the shul, he always went up to them and said, Shalom Aleichem. He was one of these guys, very friendly, So one Shabbos in the shul, I saw a guy sitting across the way, and a different. And I turned to this guy, this older man. I said, who's that guy over there? So he looked at me. He said, well, why don't you go say Shalom Aleichem to him and you'll find out. So what do you call it? And I deserved it. Why am I asking him? Go up to the guy and say Shalom Aleichem. Go say hello to the guy. People need that. Okay. Now, Yisro tells Moshe, tells him the whole story. Watch this. Vayisaper Moshe lechosto es kol asher asa Hashem lekar b'Yisrael alodos Yisrael. Moshe tells his father all the details. Es kol ha'tilo asher metzasam aderech vayitzilem Hashem. All the travails and how Hashem has saved them. Now watch this. 3 lines from the top. Vayichad Yisro al kol ha'tova asher asa Hashem leYisrael. Yisro rejoices, asher hitzilo miyad Mitzrayim, how God has saved them from Egypt. Now, do you remember what Yisro's role was in Egypt at one point? What was he? Yisro was an advisor to Paro. Paro had 3 advisors. Not only was he an advisor, what was the advice he gave Paro?
Spare Moses.
To spare the baby who pulled the crown off his head, which we're going to see later on. And who was that? That turns out to be his son-in-law. So, first of all, Yisro rejoices. Why does he rejoice? And the Torah says because he sees that the precision of God. He was in on the plot. He was there when he found out the Egyptians planned to drown the Jewish people. And what happened to the Egyptians? Moshe, they were drowned themselves. And Yisro sees, wow, quid pro quo. What goes around comes around. This is pretty impressive. And therefore, Yisro's, his rejoicing is not just the death of what happened. It's how it happened, because it confirms the belief in God. Yeah, let anybody.
Well, I understand that, like, Moshe has respect for him because he's his father-in-law, but, like, Yisro come lately, like, he jailed him for 10 years.
Yisro didn't.
Who was it?
Who jailed Moshe Rabbeinu?
Yeah, I thought
No, Moshe wasn't jailed by Yisro.
Who jailed him?
Who jailed Yisro? Why, is there a medrash that Yisro jailed him?
There's a medrash that Moshe was jailed for 10 years.
Not by Yisro?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, I don't know how to.
Then I'll come back to
Yeah, okay, I'd have to see the medrash. I have to see the medrash inside how to reconcile that. And it could be that, afterwards Yisro just said, oops, sorry, my bad. So Moshe Rabbeinu forgive me, I'm not sure. Whatever it is, you see there's a pasuk in Mishlei that says, Shlach lachmecha al pnei hamayim, cast your bread on the water, ki berov yomim timtzena. With the course of time you'll find it. Throw your bread out on the water, and in the course of time you'll find it back. This is a principle in life that you don't always see it right away, but often in life you see that when you invest and so you do the right thing, one way or another it comes back. One way or another there's going to be a payoff. Down the line there's going to be some sort of payoff. They had a famous story. A guy in World War I, there was a German platoon, soldiers, and they captured these as Italian soldiers, and the commander of the platoon told the soldiers to take the Italian POW prisoners into the forest and gun them down. There was one Jewish soldier in the German army at this World War I. He said, no, we don't shoot people in cold blood, and he insisted on not killing them, and they done. So the commander gave in. He then emigrated to America, and he opened up a windows. He was a glazier, and one day he was driving by this factory, and he sees this factory that had been fed. This factory had a fire, and all the windows were thrown out on the ground, and they were black. And so he took his wagon, and he loaded up these windows. He figured he'll take them back, he'll clean off the soot, and he'll make some money on it. He's loading up his wagon, finishes loading up his wagon, goes into this abandoned building, turns on a faucet to wash his hands, and instead of water, beer comes out of the pipes. This is in Chicago, by the way. You emigrate to Chicago. That's why Chicagoans are happy. Beer comes out of the pipes. It turned out that this was during Prohibition, and this was a headquarters, one of the bootleg operations. The mafia had a bootleg operation. This guy's washing his hands. The beer's coming out. All of a sudden, a guy grabs him from behind. He says, "Come with me," and he pulls him into an office. There's a bunch of Italian mafia guys there who are running this bootleg operation. And they said, "What are we going to do with this guy? So we better take him out to the forest and kill him." And one of the guys says, "Well, before we do, we have to talk to the boss." Because the boss is upstairs in his office. So they bring the guy up to the boss. The boss is smoking a cigar. They said, "What should we do with the guy? He knows about our operation." So we'll take him out and kill him. And then the boss looks and says, "Just 1 second. You look familiar from somewhere." He goes, "Well, what's your background?" So he starts telling him. And of course, it turned out, he says, "I was in the German army." And he says to him, "Did you ever capture a platoon of Italian soldiers?" He goes, "Yeah." "Were you the guy who said to let them live?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I was one of the soldiers in that platoon. So you kept us alive, but you ain't going to talk." And no. And that's why I call it Budweiser, and I'm a wise guy, I've got that wisdom. So you see, some of you invest, it comes back. Yisro, you know how many years earlier that was that he kept Moshe alive? Talk about 80 years earlier. Close to 80 years earlier. But Kosh Baruch Hu he keeps accounts. And you see in life, I've seen it too many times in life, you invest. Sometimes there's an investment, you do something, and funny things happen down the line. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow with Yisro giving advice.